I can tell you why structurally, why this episode is slow. All right, welcome to the podcast. I'm Geoffrey D. Calhoun, your host, and I am joined by Kristy Leigh Lussier, producer and staff writer at WeFixYourScript.com. Thanks for joining us.
I'm always excited to be here.
All right, this episode, we are going to break down episode 5 of the Wheel of Time, Blood Calls Blood. Are you ready for the logline here?
Yeah, well, let's do it.
Perrin and Egwene run into a familiar face. Mat and Rand see strange ones. Moiraine and Lan mourn their loss. So short and sweet, and that really is the essence of this episode. All right.
Okay.
So here's the issue. I'm getting right into it.
Okay. Oh, yes, let's do it. Let's dive in.
It's a slow episode.
Mm-hmm. To me, it feels slow for sure.
Now, I can tell you why structurally, this episode is slow.
Mm-hmm.
In any kind of a story structure, you hit the midpoint, and the midpoint of a character is what we call the midpoint death and return.
Right.
So that character dies. And last episode, I'm not gonna lie, favorite episode of the series so far. It was exciting. We had lots of fights. We had a male channeler. We had channelers fighting each other. It was a good episode. Lots of action. I never felt the urge to pick my phone up. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's a good measure, right?
Right. Yeah. So when you have an episode like that, you come out hot. It grabs you, and we have characters who die, right? And in this structure, the midpoint death scene of a character is forced upon them, right? They don't make that choice. And so here it happens. Lan is bleeding out, he's dying. And Nynaeve,
Mm-hmm.
she channels, right, and is reborn into the light, basically into the magic to save him. Right.
Correct.
So everybody has these moments of kind of this death and rebirth scene.
Sure.
Now, the way you break down television structure, and I'm sorry to just dive into this, guys, but I've been thinking about it, and I just want to get into it. I want to touch on this.
Mm-hmm.
When you break down television structure, you use the structure for a feature film, but you break down the episodes over the different plot points within a show, right? Or within a feature.
Right.
So if last episode would be the midpoint of a film, the next episode is where the characters have to deal with the aftermath of that midpoint. So after you have a big, powerful episode, you have another episode that's slow.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem that comes with that is you struggle to keep momentum.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Feeling like you're moving forward, not only character wise, but story wise.
Right. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I think we will do a season breakdown because
I think we should. I think it'll be helpful
because this show's had peaks and valleys. It took this show a few episodes to find its voice.
Sure.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So for the show to get its voice, it started to finally get momentum about episode 2, episode 3. So we finally start to get momentum of characters and story arcs and finding the voice and tone of the show. And then we hit that awesome midpoint, and then we slow it right down.
Right.
That's the issue. They don't have any momentum, or they don't have as much momentum as they could have from a powerful episode 1 to run them through this kind of stopgap episode, which structurally is sound. I mean, they didn't do anything wrong. It's just that, oh man, you hit that midpoint so well, and then this grinds to a halt.
It grinds to a halt versus still kind of flowing, right?
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. I definitely sense that.
And I could feel myself reaching for my phone. And that's when I go, oh man, that's a problem. I mean, at one point I stopped it and I rewound it to make sure that I was getting everything. All of that being said, it's still emotionally powerful episode.
Oh, there's some great emotional elements. There's some great character dynamics. You see the kind of inner relationship aspects of some of the characters. You get more of a deep dive into that.
Right.
And there's some just really great scenes that you get to have those moments and bring out some of that deeper, spending a little more time with the characters and getting further into their heads and their hearts and that kind of thing.
Yeah, they start peeling away the layers a little bit of the Aes Sedai and their protectors. I'm sorry, I don't remember what they're called.
Warders. They're called warders.
Warders. Yeah. All right. So they peel back that layer a little bit. So we start to see a little bit more of that emotional connection, especially between Lan and Moiraine. Which I think is cool. You can see that they love each other, but they're not in love with each other. So that's pretty fascinating. And when he feels, she feels. And my God, Daniel Henney, who plays Lan, at the very end of this episode, I mean, primal. And I could really appreciate how far as an actor he took himself in that scene, because it was, at the end of the day, it's him and the cast, and he's screaming. But it was probably like, I felt that, and I was like, wow, that is taking this character somewhere we have not seen yet, because he's been so cold and reserved. That we put him through this journey of loss. And it really humanizes. So I think that's powerful. I love that. And then to see, Rosamund Pike feeding off of that, I think that scene was great. I think that emotion was earned.
Yes, it was exactly the reflection of the message they're trying to convey about how warders and Aes Sedai have that bond and feel each other's pain. So it's not just her visually seeing Lan experiencing the pain.
Right.
She's feeling everything he's feeling, and she finally has her own kind of breakdown. And it's really neat too, because these two characters are known as extremely very stoic.
Right.
And some of the Aes Sedai are known as being very stone-faced. The warders are known as being very stone-faced and very just rigid. And so this was a really cool thing to see on screen as an adaptation, because it's only spoken of in the book or implied about, but there's never actually a visual scene that we read in the series. So they brought that to life in this sequence. And that's, to me, was one of my favorite parts of the episode.
And you appreciate that because you're a screenwriter.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
For sure.
This is what we do. Right. This is what we do. We visualize internal struggles and emotional conflict. So when you're adapting work, this is where you can take advantage of the medium. You know, this scene doesn't exist in the novels now, or is whatever. If we as a screenwriter adapting this, we go, oh, how do I show this? And you create that scene. This is where it's proof that you don't need a direct adaptation
for sure
for something to work. And so I think that's really interesting. And I think it was a great decision.
Yeah, for sure.
Now Rand and Matt.
Let's talk about Rand.
All right, Rand and Matt. So I like the growth that Rand is getting. I like that he's getting a little bit more development, we could just say. Matt's going down a dark tunnel. He looks like hell. And so it's very obvious he's struggling, what's going on with whatever this curse is that he has. They talk about Tom being dead. We all know he's not dead. I don't even read the books and I know he's not dead, because you're not going to take a character like that and kill him off screen.
No.
Right?
No. So people would riot.
So that to me, like, they threw that out there and I'm like, this is like a red herring. I wouldn't even consider it. It's not a thing.
Sure.
The line where Matt is like, tell me I didn't kill the girls again. And Rand kind of goes through that. You can see that Matt is struggling with it. I would have liked to have seen a little less exposition in that and a little bit more visual representation of it, where he was flashing to his sisters, he was flashing to the little girl being dead.
That's a good point.
Showing the comparison there,
that
visually,
juxtaposition.
weighing that on him. The exposition, it's easy to get there. It's always hard to sell that, and it's hard for the actor. It makes it even harder for them.
Right.
So we've got that. I did find that interesting where they're showing the character who was channeling the false dragon.
Oh yeah.
And Matt sees him visualizing him laughing at him as
Yes.
if the false dragon knows something that he doesn't know. And then he hears the whispers that the false dragon heard.
Yeah.
But then it's the realization that it's all in Matt's head. I like that stuff.
Yeah, because that's that element of, okay, again, the audience starts to think, well, can Matt channel? Because the same evilness and madness in Logain's head obviously clearly is translating through Matt somehow.
Yeah.
So you start to think and doubt, you know, like, can Logain see it? Does he see that Matt is like him? Right.
I love an unreliable narrator. I love when you have somebody who is in an existence but doesn't know what's going on or starts struggling with reality, because that, as a viewer, pulls you back in. It makes you pay attention more.
Oh, for sure.
In an episode like this, I would focus less on Rand and the ogre. As interesting as the ogre is, I would be pulling in more moments of Matt struggling with the these visions, because we want to try and pick the pace up, especially after we just had this big previous episode. So I would really look at, like, how do we keep this pace going? And that is one way that you could utilize, like, the way that they did it in this episode, and I thought was a really great idea and was executed well, was with Egwene and Perrin being captured by
the White Cloaks.
Yeah. Now, I thought this is a great way to pick the pace up. Right? Yes. Because it is tense. When the actor who plays Child Valda. Yeah. I love this actor's choices that he makes. I mean, this guy, there is nothing scarier than seeing an evil, villainous character love being evil and villainous.
Right. And like it's nothing.
It's nothing. Like, it's his day job and the guy loves what he does. I mean, that is terrifying. And it's not a silly, over the top, caricature of a villain. This is a guy that's like, look, this is what I'm good at doing. I love what I'm doing. Yeah. And unfortunately, you're here with me. You know, so
I believe in my cause.
And I believe, exactly. He's righteous, and what he's supposed to do is he's doing it for the light. So what a great character. This character could have easily been trampled on with the wrong cast.
Yes.
But my God, this guy nails it. It's wonderful. When he pours the wine on the blade, to clean the blade,
to clean it off, right,
and then he just starts slicing pieces of bacon off of Perrin's back, and you're going, what the hell is? I was just like, wow, like that brought me back into the show, brought me back into the episode. And then the conflict there, because Perrin and Egwene have really bonded. I would say more than I see Matt and Rand. I mean, I really feel like Perrin and Egwene have really kind of come together on this journey.
Yeah, and they their relationship's always been likened to a brother-sister relationship. So I feel like that really does play on screen, and they have done a really good job of that. And this scene again is kind of one of those scenes where never really stated in the books. We do know that the White Cloaks, particularly Valda and his crew, go over the top, and they do commit these crazy acts of violence in the name of the light. But to see it come to fruition in this particular scene, again, it's like the writer's dream of like, now I'm going to show it. I'm going to show something. I'm going to give that to the audience. Right.
I loved it. I mean, because you look at this guy, Child Valda, and he can... False humility is what comes to mind with this character, which is an awesome level of depth to give a guy. So you put a villainous character like this in a position of authority, right? But then he feigns to be humble, humility, to the point where don't call me sir, call me by my name.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
He's trying to be friendly,
Yeah,
and then they don't do it, and he insists, and now it's a power move.
for
His
sure.
false humility is a power move, and I'm like, that's a lot of depth to that writing. I think it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
to
it's
bring
great.
that.
Yeah, for sure.
And to see her finally channel the fireball, and you think, oh, here it comes,
Right.
and then it's just a whiff and a
It's
miss.
just a poof.
And I was like, that's a great twist. Again, the
It
show
was.
brings in
Yeah.
an awesome twist. Nothing happens. I love it. But then Perrin starts to turn into this inspired wolf character. We don't know anything yet. His binds burn, and this is where I got confused. Did he burn them from his transformation, or did she burn them as a misdirection? And that's what I didn't quite figure out.
I think that's actually been a question kind of rolling around for everybody, because it likens back to something that was mentioned earlier that talks about kind of the rules of Aes Sedai and what Valda believes in terms of what Aes Sedai can do. And so he mentions that, if I even believed you could channel, I wouldn't have tied your, hands, or I would have already taken your hands, because the known thing is that Aes Sedai need to use their hands to channel. In all actuality, they really don't. The stronger of the Aes Sedais can channel without having to use the movement.
Right.
So that's kind of where this twist in the mind of where we think like we're building on the strength of, is she strong enough that she could have channeled without
she
having
did it
to
with
use
her
her hands, and
I
that
like
she did
that.
it with her thought. So that's thrown out there. But again, also we do get to have this introduction into Perrin's his journey of becoming a wolf brother, which is essentially what, his eyes turn yellow and the wolves come, and he's been able to kind of call them with his own mindset of he's in trouble, so he calls his pack. Really.
Now you've read the book, so walk me through this a little bit, because it hasn't been explained in the story. Does he become a wolf brother because he was bit by a Trolloc, or is this something that's already in his blood that just, I like the path. It just feels out of nowhere because I can't find the genesis of it.
Yeah. So unfortunately, there is a whole scenario set up with a character that they do meet on the road before they're even with the Tinkers.
Okay.
And his character is a wolf leader. He lives with the wolves, and he comes across Perrin and Egwene, and he kind of takes care of them. And in that time set, Perrin kind of starts to shift into this.
Okay, so it's all that's all cut for time,
right? But I think in the show, what they did is a few episodes earlier, he does come across the wolf, and with his injury from the Trolloc attack, the wolf comes up, and they have this face to face, and the wolf licks his wound, and so
I understand.
There's that sense of like,
oof, I missed that.
I
thought I'm pretty savvy viewer, right? But I missed it.
Yeah, so I thought, okay, maybe that's how they're kind of introducing that story arc, which is he had that moment.
I think I would have appreciated maybe a little bit more of a visual
for sure
effect with that lick of the wound then, so that
I think during the time with the Tinkers too, there was probably more ample opportunity to explore
play that out
more,
a little,
play that out a little bit more, so that when you get to this moment, it again doesn't feel like it's out of nowhere. It feels earned,
yeah, exactly.
Makes sense.
That's a great way to put it. So they get out, and he calls the banners, and the wolves, they eat everybody, because why
they
wouldn't
just destroy everybody? It's awesome.
Yeah. So
and bye.
Yeah, I was like take it. Yeah. So I thought that was great. I'm really glad to see that happen with Perrin, because I have been wondering where it's going to go, and then I want to see where it goes further.
Sure.
I want to see the evolution of that character, but I am really glad that they brought in that self-deprecation moment where he's like, I deserve this, right? Because that guilt of killing his wife lay so deep within him.
For sure.
So I was
that
like,
will always be through. That's kind of his.
No,
his
I'm
overcome. Yeah.
It's I hate to say, like, it's a fantastic wound. So to have that in, in this character, it's like, what's wrong with me? So that's how I killed his wife. It's wonderful. No, like it's a great, it's a great wound for a character to have, because you can just keep mining that pain. And so to see that come back, in this moment where he's like, yeah, let this guy slice me up. So I thought that was good. So overall, a slower episode. But I expected this, right? Because this is
midpoint, right?
If you know television structure and you understand that it comes from feature structure, then you go, yeah, okay, I understand. So I expected it. But again, it's hard to get through an episode like this when you have that kind of late momentum from the season and coming off of a really powerful episode before.
Right.
I think they tried a lot of things to keep the momentum going, and they did the best they can. I didn't dislike the episode, but it's just like, hey, this is what it is. It is what it is. So I'm hoping that the momentum picks up for the next episode, because if the next episode is slow, then we're kind of losing that momentum.
In hot water.
You're essentially starting over with the show, and that's the last thing you want, is to have like a soft reboot mid-season. So hopefully they're really able to pick this thing back up, and we can see what happens next, even though the entire world has seen the rest of the show but me. This is where we're at. So we will be back next week. We didn't have one last week because it was Christmas, and
Christmas. We took a break.
I wanted to take a minute. So
all
right. Well, this episode is brought to you by the Script Summit Screenplay Contest, where you can win $1,000 cash prize, or the chance to get represented by a talent manager. We had 2 get represented last year. So scriptsummit.com, definitely check that out. It is worth it. Do you have any final thoughts for me, Kristy?
I'm excited for next week. Final thoughts on this episode. Yeah, I absolutely am on the same page. I do feel there was a slowdown, kind of expected again, because of coming off of the big stuff in 4.
Yeah.
And there were some highs and there were a few lows in this one, but overall, it was definitely kind of what I thought we were going to come, a little bit of a slowdown before moving forward kind of thing.
I agree. I mean, as much as I liked the ogre character, I could have been, I feel he could have been cut completely. And we could have mined more from the other plots we've already established. I understand they have to introduce the character. They have to bring him in because he's going to be featured later throughout. But
would this have been the episode? Maybe not. Maybe that could have been the next one.
I would say definitely. I look for places like, okay, where could we have explored more? And that's one that I would have considered. But it is interesting to learn more about the world and the characters, and to see this crazy looking ogre. So.
And he's awesome. He's awesome.
I look forward to seeing more where he comes from, because I guess he's like super old and knowledgeable and not the expected ogre as a former DM from Dungeons and Dragons would expect. I was like, this dude's an ogre. That's a different looking ogre.
Yeah, it's a little different.
This guy can form sentences. All right. Well, we will see you everybody next week.